Episode 174. The Great Multiversal Move-Off. The evening sun filtered through the labyrinth's impossible windows, casting patterns of light that shifted between realities with each passing moment. The castle hummed with its usual organized chaos, 15 children gradually settling into their evening routines, while 60 adults coordinated the complex logistics of the household that defied every conventional understanding of family structure. But tonight, something different was brewing, something that would prove to be either the most brilliant or the most ridiculous family bonding activity in the sanctuary's 8-year history. Jade stood in the castle's vast central courtyard, a space that magical architecture had expanded to accommodate gatherings of their considerable family size. Her wild red curls caught the fading light as she surveyed the assembled household with barely contained glee, her enhanced awareness detecting the mixture of curiosity and appropriate wariness that her mysterious summons had generated among family members whose accumulated experience with her various surprises made cautious optimism their default response to unexpected announcements. Nathan, James, and Gabe had positioned cameras at strategic angles throughout the courtyard, the YouTube creators clearly recognizing that whatever Jade had planned warranted comprehensive documentation despite lacking specific details about what exactly they would be capturing, beyond her cryptic promise that tonight would feature family bonding activity unlike anything they had previously experienced together. Nathan's voice carried professional excitement mixing with genuine curiosity when he articulated a question that multiple family members were clearly thinking based on their expressions and their body language. Okay, Jade, you have successfully gathered literally everyone, including getting Severus away from his potions lab and getting the Freddy manifestations to leave their dream realms. So whatever you have planned must be genuinely significant or genuinely entertaining enough to warrant such comprehensive summons. Care to share what surprise you have in store before anticipation and speculation both reach levels that actual reveal cannot possibly match, regardless of how impressive or innovative your plan proves being? Jade's grin widened with obvious mischief that 8 years of family building had not diminished despite accumulated responsibilities, and despite matriarch role theoretically requiring maintaining dignified, composed presentation, rather than embracing chaos and silliness, that her essential nature and her refusal to take herself too seriously both made natural expressions. Her voice when she spoke carried warmth, mixing with barely suppressed laughter about what she was about to propose. Tonight, my beloved chaotic family, we are going to participate in what I am calling the Great Multiversal Move-Off, a competition that will test your abilities to maintain composure, embrace complete absurdity, and most importantly, get in touch with your inner bovine nature through activity that summer camps and team-building exercises have employed for creating bonding and creating shared ridiculous memories that dignity and seriousness both must temporarily yield to for sake of genuine fun and genuine collective laughter. She paused for dramatic effect, enjoying the growing confusion and growing speculation her nailsman had created. The rules are simple, beautifully, elegantly simple, in ways that execution will prove considerably more complicated than explanation suggests. Everyone, and I do mean everyone with exactly zero exceptions regardless of status or dignity or accumulated gravitas, will get on hands and knees in the grass that I have had specially grown in this courtyard for tonight's purposes. Master Splinter's weathered features showed mixture of amusement and appropriate concern about what his daughter was describing, his wisdom and his accumulated experience, both making him recognize that simple rules often concealed considerably complex emotional and social dynamics that group activities inevitably generated through interpersonal reactions and through varying comfort levels with silliness and vulnerability. Tony Stark's holographic presence flickered with obvious curiosity, mixing with his characteristic irreverent humor. Okay, so we are establishing baseline absurdity through getting literal gods and literal monsters and various formidable individuals all onto hands and knees in grass. I am assuming this is not conclusion, but rather is set up for whatever additional ridiculousness you have planned that this preliminary indignity serves, facilitating through getting everyone into vulnerable silly position before revealing actual challenge. Jade nodded confirmation while continuing explanation. Exactly right, Tony. Once everyone is positioned on hands and knees, the actual competition begins. Each participant will grab grass with their mouth, actually put grass between their teeth like grazing cattle, and will produce their best cow impression, their most authentic, committed moo. That full voice and full dramatic commitment both hopefully contribute toward creating, rather than half-hearted, embarrassed attempt that self-consciousness might motivate offering, despite rules requiring genuine effort. Loki's aristocratic features showed obvious delight at the proposed chaos, his god of mischief nature, making him naturally appreciate activities that dignity and conventional propriety both would suggest avoiding, despite their potential for genuine entertainment and genuine bonding through shared vulnerability and shared silliness. His theatrical voice carried enthusiasm when he articulated response. This is magnificent, genuinely inspired madness that my own considerable experience with creating chaos and creating memorable moments makes me recognize as potentially legendary family story if execution lives up to concept's beautiful, absurd potential. Jade's expression showed she appreciated his immediate enthusiasm, while also recognizing that not everyone would share such uncomplicated positive response to her proposal. Her voice took on more serious quality, emphasizing crucial element. And here's the challenge that separates this from just being silly group activity. While you are mooing, while you are fully committed to your bovine impression, with grass in mouth and dignity thoroughly abandoned, you must not laugh. The first person to laugh, to break character and surrender to the absurdity, loses the round and is eliminated from competition. Severus Snape's expression showed exactly the level of reluctant resignation and barely suppressed horror that Jade had anticipated from the dignified potions master, whose entire aesthetic and whose entire carefully maintained presentation both emphasized seriousness and emphasized scholarly gravitas that getting on hands and knees, mooing like cow, would thoroughly undermine regardless of how quickly dignity could periodically be restored after activity concluded. His sardonic voice carried mixture of protest and inevitable acceptance when he articulated response. You cannot seriously expect any of us, whose positions and whose natures both demand maintaining appropriate gravitas and appropriate dignity, to participate in such thoroughly undignified spectacle that mooing like cattle represents regardless of team-building benefits or bonding potential that shared humiliation theoretically creates through collective suffering. Jade moved to stand directly before Severus, her lack of apology or defensive justification both communicating that she had thoroughly considered implications and had decided benefits outweighed costs, despite valid concerns about dignity and about comfort that the activity would challenge through requiring vulnerability and requiring embracing silliness that defensive walls and careful presentations will typically protect against. Her voice carried gentle firmness that love, rather than arbitrary authority, motivated when she responded. Severus, I'm absolutely seriously expecting exactly that, expecting participation from literally everyone, including you, and including every other member of this family, who might prefer maintaining dignified distance from such activities. This is not punishment, not arbitrary exercise of authority for demonstrating control, or for forcing compliance that resentment, rather than genuine engagement, would characterize. She paused ensuring he was listening before continuing with emphasis about purpose. This is explicit invitation to be silly together, to share moments of complete absurdity that laughter and ridiculous memories both create as bonding experiences that serious activities and dignified interactions alone cannot adequately provide, despite their obvious importance and their obvious value for other purposes. We need this. We need permission and need collective experience of being ridiculous without judgment and without lasting consequences beyond funny stories and shared laughter. Angelina Jolie moved to stand beside Jade with maternal support, making her naturally positioned for reinforcing message, while also adding her own perspective about value and about healthy family dynamics, requiring multiple modes and requiring varied activities that different purposes and different forms of connection all served. Her voice carried warmth, mixing with gentle authority when she addressed assembled family. Your daughter is absolutely correct about this, representing valuable activity, despite surface absurdity, and despite reasonable resistance that self-consciousness and dignity both make natural responses to suggestion about collective silliness. Families need shared, ridiculous memories, need moments where hierarchies and roles all temporarily dissolve into simple collective humanity, embracing play and embracing absurdity that adult life and serious responsibilities both make increasingly difficult accessing, without deliberate choice and without explicit permission that structured activity provides. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin from Daredevil Born Again, whose formidable presence and whose accumulated gravitas made him perhaps least likely candidate for enthusiastic participation in cow-mooing competition, showed surprising thoughtful consideration rather than immediate rejection. His deep voice carried measured assessment when he articulated perspective. If we are to function as genuine family, rather than just as collection of individuals who coexist, then shared vulnerability and shared undignified moments both serve important purposes for building trust and for demonstrating that safety and acceptance both extend beyond just serious contexts or just comfortable situations into territories that embarrassment and self-consciousness both make genuinely challenging, despite lack of actual danger or actual lasting harm. His massive form shifted a decision visibly crystallized. I will participate, will embrace complete absurdity, and will moo like cow with full commitment rather than half-hearted reluctant compliance, because Jade has earned such trust, and because family bonds require reciprocal vulnerability, that her constant giving and her constant acceptance of our various natures all deserve receiving through our willingness to be silly and undignified when she asks such participation for collective benefit. Jade felt tears threatening at his articulation and at his obvious genuine willingness to embrace activity that his nature and his carefully maintained presentation both made genuinely difficult choice, rather than being simple, easy agreement, disconnected from actual costs or actual significance. Her voice carried emotion when she responded. Thank you, Wilson. Your willingness and your understanding about purpose both honor me and demonstrate exactly the kind of trust and safety that I have been trying to build across 8 years of refusing to accept that dignity and vulnerability must be opposing forces, rather than recognizing them as complementary. Dimensions that complete authentic family life requires integrating. The children had been watching the exchange with obvious excitement, barely contained beneath appropriate attention to adult discussion, their natural enthusiasm for games, and their natural lack of self-consciousness about silliness, both making them ideal participants who would embrace activity without requiring philosophical justification or extensive explanation about purposes and benefits. Nicholas spoke for his siblings with characteristic thoughtful articulation despite his youth. We want to participate too, want to join the move and want to see all of you being silly together because it makes the family feel more real and more fun when even the scary, powerful people can laugh and can be ridiculous without everything being serious all the time, even though we know serious is important too for some things. Master Splinter's expression showed he recognized the children's wisdom and recognized that their perspective about balance and about the value of collective silliness deserved honoring through adult participation, rather than dismissing through claims about maturity or dignity, requiring distance from such activities. His gentle voice carried approval when he responded. The children speak wisdom that age and accumulated experience sometimes make difficult recognizing through defensive walls and through habitual presentations that authenticity and playfulness both get sacrificed for maintaining. I will participate, will moo like cow with full commitment, will embrace undignified moments for sake of family bonding, and for sake of demonstrating that wisdom and silliness both coexist without contradiction when security and love make vulnerability safe rather than dangerous. The family began positioning themselves throughout the courtyard as Jade directed placement, and as magical architecture adjusted the grass coverage to ensure adequate space and adequate grazing material for all 50 adults and 15 children who would be simultaneously attempting to maintain bovine character while suppressing laughter at collective absurdity. The cameras captured everything as Nathan provided running commentary that professional documentation and genuine entertainment both made natural approach. This is genuinely unprecedented footage, watching literal gods and watching formidable powerful individuals all getting onto hands and knees preparing to moo like cattle. The cultural anthropology implications and the family dynamics insights both make this valuable documentation beyond just being hilarious content that audiences will absolutely love, despite or perhaps because of its complete absurdity. Jade surveyed her assembled family with profound satisfaction and profound love. Recognition of their willingness to participate and their various levels of enthusiasm and reluctance both demonstrated the trust and the safety she had been building through 8 years of sustained acceptance and sustained celebration of complete authentic selves, including capacity for change, silliness alongside serious capabilities and serious natures. Her voice carried warmth when she gave final instructions before beginning. Remember, full commitment required, actual grass in mouth, actual loud proud moves from everyone simultaneously, and absolutely no laughing until I declare the round complete, with first person to break and laugh being eliminated while everyone else continues for additional rounds until only one person remains as ultimate champion of composure and bovine impression skills. She paused dramatically before adding crucial detail. And the winner receives bragging rights plus trophy that Tony and Donatello collaborated creating specifically for tonight. Golden cow statue with inscription reading, Champion Bovine Impersonator, that display and ridiculous pride both will hopefully make this worth the embarrassment and worth the undignified positioning. Tony's holographic form gestured toward where the trophy sat on pedestal, its ridiculous majesty making several family members laugh, despite competition not yet having officially begun. His voice carried obvious satisfaction about the creation. I am genuinely proud of this monstrosity, this beautiful, ridiculous golden cow that winner will treasure or will hide in embarrassment, depending on their sense of humor, and their willingness to embrace absurdity as badge of honor rather than as mark of shame. The family got into position with varying degrees of grace and varying amounts of grumbling. The courtyard filled with assembled beings whose diverse natures and whose diverse backgrounds all made the image absolutely surreal and absolutely hilarious even before any mooing commenced. Gods and monsters and heroes and reformed villains and actors and YouTubers and everything in between, all on hands and knees with grass within reach of mouths that dignity and self-respect both theoretically should have prevented approaching for such ridiculous purpose. Jade counted down from 3, her voice carrying excitement and barely suppressed laughter about what was about to occur. 3, 2, 1, grab grass and moo. The resulting cacophony defied description. 75 voices, all simultaneously attempting bovine impressions, while grass protruded from mouths, and while collective absurdity reached levels that reality itself seemed to struggle processing, despite households' accumulated experience with impossible and surreal making this just particularly concentrated expression, rather than being categorically different from their usual existence. Sever Snake's moo emerged as reluctant monotone, that minimal effort and maximum dignity preservation, both characterized despite grass in mouth and despite positioning thoroughly undermining any actual gravitas regardless of vocal delivery. His expression showed he was absolutely hating every moment, while also visibly struggling not to laugh at surrounding chaos and at his own ridiculous situation. Loki's performance was predictably theatrical, his moo carrying dramatic operatic quality, that full voice and full commitment both made genuinely impressive bovine impression, despite its absurdity and despite his obvious relish and opportunity for creating memorable moments through embracing rather than resisting the silliness. His eyes sparkled with mischief as he maintained character while clearly enjoying other struggles. Wolverine's moo emerged as gruff growl, but his characteristic raspy voice made sound more threatening than bovine, despite grass in mouth and despite positioning, making threatening presentation essentially impossible to maintain with straight face. His visible struggle not to laugh at himself and at surrounding chaos both made his participation particularly entertaining given his usual gruff, serious demeanor. Robert Englund delivered full-throated theatrical moo. The decades of performance experience and natural dramatic instinct both made genuinely committed, impressive impression despite its complete absurdity. His enjoyment was obvious. His willingness to embrace ridiculous and make it memorable through skill and through dedication, both demonstrating exactly why he had become legendary within horror and performance communities. The four Turtle Brothers' attempts varied in style and commitment. Leonardo trying to maintain dignified approach despite absurdity. Raphael clearly annoyed but participating. Donatello analyzing optimal move frequency and tone. And Michelangelo absolutely loving every second with enthusiastic, wholehearted embrace. That natural, playful nature made his participation feel completely authentic, rather than forced or reluctant. David Bowie somehow made his moo sound musical and artistic. Decades of vocal control and creative expression, making even ridiculous cow impression, become performance art that beauty and absurdity both synthesize through his characteristic genius and his characteristic willingness to embrace unconventional and make it meaningful. Sheriff attempted matching his idol's musical quality while also adding his Goblin King theatrical flair. The combination creating moo that was simultaneously impressive and completely ridiculous in ways that his usual dramatic, powerful presentation made particularly entertaining through contrast between dignity and current, thoroughly undignified activity. The Freddy Krueger manifestations all participated with varying approaches, the original Freddy making his moo sound vaguely threatening despite absurdity, the Dream Demon creating unsettling harmonics that made several people shudder despite laughter, and Fred attempting cheerful, normal moo that his gentle, redeemed nature made appropriate contribution. Wilson Fisk's deep, resonant moo carries surprising commitment given his earlier philosophical discussion, his massive frame, and his powerful voice, both making his bovine impression genuinely impressive while simultaneously being absolutely hilarious given who was producing it, and given the complete incongruity between his usual presentation and current activity. Angelina Jolie participated with grace and good humor, maternal wisdom and accumulated experience with children, and with embracing playfulness, both making her natural, enthusiastic participant, whose moo carried warmth and genuine commitment, without self-consciousness or reluctance that some others struggled overcoming. Master Splinter's moo somehow maintained dignity, despite complete undignified positioning and activity, his accumulated wisdom and his natural gravitas, both making even ridiculous moments feel somewhat profound through his participation, communicating acceptance, and modeling healthy engagement with silliness that his students and his daughter both appreciated witnessing. But it was Palpatine, the redeemed former emperor whose transformation and whose integration had been one of household's most unlikely and most significant redemptions, whose approach and whose commitment both proved most unexpected and most impressive. His moo emerged with absolute seriousness, with complete commitment, with utter lack of self-consciousness or irony that made his participation somehow more absurd than anyone else's, through contrast between his historical gravitas and current bovine impression, delivered with straight face and genuine focus. His expression showed no hint of laughter, no trace of embarrassment, just complete absorption in task and complete commitment to excellence, that competition and challenge both triggered within his nature, regardless of activity's dignity or lack thereof. He had decided to win, had committed fully to that objective, and was executing with characteristic intensity and characteristic refusal to accept defeat that had once made him emperor and now made him unexpectedly formidable competitor in absurd cow mooing contest. The first casualties came quickly, as various family members' composure cracked under combined assaults of surrounding chaos and self-awareness of our own ridiculous participation. Michelangelo lasted approximately 5 seconds before dissolving into helpless laughter that wholehearted embrace and natural playfulness both made inevitable outcome. Ted Poole made it perhaps 3 seconds before fourth wall breaking and absurdity appreciation both overwhelmed any possibility of maintaining straight face. Tony Stark's holographic form flickered as even projected presence somehow conveyed laughter at the spectacle. Drax lasted surprisingly long given his literal nature, approximately 15 seconds before the absurdity penetrated his booming laugh. As casualties mounted and as eliminations continued through subsequent rounds, the remaining competitors showed impressive dedication and impressive composure, despite increasingly difficult circumstances, as fewer participants meant greater focus on individual performances and greater awareness of own absurdity without surrounding chaos providing distraction or providing cover. Severus maintained far longer than anyone anticipated, his stubborn pride and his accumulated skill at suppressing emotional displays, both serving him well, despite his obvious hatred of activity and despite his visible struggle. But eventually, the combination of his own ridiculous positioning and Loki's increasingly theatrical moves from nearby both broke his composure in round 4, his laugh emerging as surprised short, that defeat and relief both characterized. The final rounds came down to 3 unlikely competitors, whose different reasons and different approaches all had sustained them through multiple eliminations. Palpatine remained utterly serious, his complete commitment, and his complete lack of self-consciousness, making him formidable finalists. Master Splinter maintained through wisdom and through accumulated discipline that decades of meditation and training had cultivated, and surprisingly, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, had lasted through sheer stubborn determination and through his characteristic refusal to accept defeat once committed to objective. But it was Master Splinter whose composure finally cracked first and final round, his wisdom and his genuine appreciation for what activity represented, both making him willing to surrender gracefully when Jade's own enthusiastic participation finally triggered his warm grandfatherly laugh at his daughter's complete joyful embrace of silliness that organized and facilitated this whole ridiculous beautiful moment. Wilson lasted another 30 seconds, his powerful control and his determined focus, both serving him well, until Palpatine's utterly serious, intense moo finally broke through his composure through pure absurdity of former emperor taking cow mooing competition with such complete genuine commitment that laughter became inevitable, response regardless of discipline. Which left Palpatine as ultimate winner, His victory complete and his satisfaction obvious, despite the ridiculous nature of the accomplishment, and despite the golden cow trophy representing the achievement that conventional standards would suggest hardly warranted pride or celebration. Jade approached him with the trophy held ceremonially, her voice carrying warmth and genuine admiration when she addressed the champion. Sheev Palpatine, I hereby declare you champion Bovine impersonator and ultimate winner of the great multiversal Ruoff. Your commitment, your focus, your complete and utter seriousness about ridiculous activity all demonstrated exactly what I was hoping this would create. Genuine full participation, the trust and safety both made possible, despite dignity and self-consciousness both suggesting resistance or reluctant minimal compliance. Palpatine accepted the trophy with genuine pride that 8 years of redemption and 8 years of family life both had made possible through transforming him from emperor, who took everything seriously, into grandfather and family member who could take ridiculous seriously, precisely because security and love make Selena safe rather than threatening. His voice carried satisfaction when he responded, I am honored by this victory and honored by this ridiculous trophy that I will display prominently despite, or perhaps because of, its complete absurdity. Tonight demonstrated that family bonds strengthen through shared vulnerability and through shared silliness, that we are strongest not when maintaining dignified distance, but when embracing collective humanity, including capacity for playfulness, alongside our very serious natures and serious capabilities. The evening concluded with laughter and with continued joking about performances and about eliminations, the shared experience creating exactly the bonding and creating exactly the memories that Jade had intended, facilitating through activity that conventional wisdom might dismiss as waste of time or as undignified spectacle. Disconnected from recognizing value that play and absurdity both served for healthy family dynamics and healthy individual well-being. Nathan's footage captured everything. Documentation that would become legendary content for channels and legendary family story that retelling and remembering both was sustained across years as a reminder about night when gods and monsters and heroes all mooed like cows together and somehow made that beautiful, meaningful expression of love and trust and willingness to be vulnerable together. Welcome to understanding that families needed silliness as much as they needed seriousness, needed shared absurd memories alongside shared serious experiences. Welcome to recognition that the great multiversal Ruoff had accomplished exactly what Jade intended, creating bonding through collective ridiculous vulnerability that laughter and love both make safe and made meaningful, despite surface absurdity. The champion Bovine impersonator had been crowned, the memories had been made, and somewhere in an impossible castle between realities, 75 beings who had moved like cows together were bound slightly closer through having shared something completely ridiculous and completely beautiful that only their unique, impossible family could have created through trust and safety, and willingness to embrace absurdity when love made vulnerability feel like gift rather than like risk.